there she comes.
Hey, it's better than never.
I'm not quite sure about that one.
I did not know you were chairing, otherwise I would have changed documents.
We'll call the Williams County Commission meeting for June 15th to order. Beth, can you do a roll call?
Barry,
Here.
Steve is absent. Bo
Here.
and David.
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll proceed. Let's do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing up is the consent agenda. What are the wishes?
Move to approve.
Is a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Beth, roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion carried. Let's hit unfinished business there, Muddy Valley subdivision plat. Ed?
Morning, Commissioners. Ed Rintamaki, 49th Latitude Land Survey, survey of record on this Muddy Valley subdivision replat or amended survey. Just I guess briefly, we're still in the process of obtaining all the necessary beneficiary certificates or certification letters from the mortgage companies that hold mortgage on properties within this subdivision. And that there's one of the mortgage company has quite a few requirements as part of this process, and that's what I've been trying to work through. And of course, communication sometimes takes a while to get to the right individuals. Right now, I'm waiting on an appraisal on one particular property within the subdivision, and once I have that appraisal back, then I can submit all the necessary information to this mortgage company, and hopefully that they will acquiesce to that boundary line adjustment from what they originally thought they were mortgaging. The difference in acreage is like about 1/100 of an acre, but because of the criteria they require, we have to go through this process, creating separate maps, getting appraisal done, and so on. So that's where I'm at right now, is just waiting for the appraisal to come back and then I can submit. So I'm hoping sooner rather than later, we can get this project closed out. So I don't know if you have any questions or.
Well, it would sure be nice to get it closed out.
Been a long process.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions for Ed, guys? Well, thanks for working on it, and like I say, the sooner the better. We'd love to get this thing closed out.
You and me both.
I bet.
Thanks.
Does it feel like I'm yelling at you guys sitting there? Because it seems loud today. It's good? All right, as long as it's good, we'll keep going with it. I am yelling at you, Beth. There's the difference. I do have department heads. I got a couple that want to run in here first. Mike, you want to come up?
Good morning.
Hi.
This morning I bring to you a request to go to the 1% committee
to purchase repeaters for all 4 of our towers for our 911 channel. That's a VHF channel that will not be included in the siren project, but it controls all the paging for all the rural fire departments in the county. And the repeaters that we have now are at end of life, and these new repeaters will integrate into the new siren system, so it makes it easier for the dispatchers and more efficient for the dispatchers to page out the fire departments. And it's $140,000.
Okay, you guys have any questions for, it's just basically, it's an upgrade that we need to have so we can continue to dispatch properly?
Yep, our repeaters that we have now are probably they're over 10, maybe 15 years old, so they're end of life. They don't support them anymore, but we've been keeping them up. And it's time now that we're having the new system come in to replace them.
So is this, it was just the radios that are the dual band, right? The pagers
Yep.
are all VHF?
The
right?
pagers are all VHF, and if they were to revert to 800 megahertz pagers, those pagers are bigger and way more expensive. And they already have the pagers in place right now, so this is the better option for everyone. It also gives us the ability to have a backup if the 800 megahertz were to go down. This is the system we've been using for forever.
Anybody else got any questions for Mike on this one? What are the wishes?
I'd move to approve the request to the 1%.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? And I assume that means you'd let me sign it to send it in? Do we need to put that in there?
Yes, yep, have the vice chair sign.
Good. Okay, no discussion. Beth, roll call.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, planning and zoning?
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Taylor Dawson, Staff Planner. And today we've got 3 items for you. The first is LU 44-21. Ed Rentamaki is requesting a zone change to rural residential for 4 proposed lots in Section 5 of Equality Township. You guys did hear this request at the June 1st meeting, however, we have some updates to provide. Staff did visit the site to take pictures of the existing approaches, and you can find those in your staff report. We identified 1 existing driveway leading to the home on the property, as well as 2 culverts that are built up but unimproved for access points. We spoke with Wayne Crow, the county engineer again, and he said the approaches are sufficient as is. However, permits from the highway department would be required if the approaches are to be altered or if they plan to add any additional approaches. So in total, there would be 2 new driveways created as a result of this subdivision. And then each proposed lot would be approximately 330 feet wide. If there's any additional questions related to the approaches, I see Wayne's here today. Ed's also here to answer any questions.
Ed, you're representing the applicant, I assume. Do you have anything to add?
Can you zoom in a little bit? It's like, I can't get it, I can't get a clear picture on my phone here, but. You said there's gonna be 2 more approaches?
Yes, and forgive me because I am having a hard time reading the page number, but in your staff report, I believe it's page 13. We provided a plat where we've highlighted where the existing approaches are. I believe it's page 11 or 13. The page numbers are printed over. So the existing approach is on the east property line. There's one that's essentially down the center of the property now, and then one on the far west. Yep.
It's the second to the last page, Barry.
And I see the township was undecided.
Yep, they just said they would defer to your decision.
Well, I just go back to, so each one of the townships where the highway curves, there's approach coming onto the highway. And there's 2 existing approaches there now. If you add 3 more, in 1,300 feet, that just seems like a whole bunch. I just worry, someday down the road, school bus stuff. And I mean, it just, 'cause I don't believe you can see very well from coming from the north, that hill, the field, kind of a high rise to it. It just seems to me like a lot of approaches around a 90-degree corner, but maybe that, I'm just worrying too much or what?
No, I think there's confusion between approaches and driveways. And so there are 3 approaches out there. They've been pointed out to you, the east, the middle, and then the west side. So each one of those approaches will service 2 lots. And so there's one existing driveway, and then there'll be other driveways off of the approaches to the other lots. So there's only 3 approaches there now.
They're not actually tying onto the highway then, these approaches.
The approaches tie onto the highways, but the driveways will not.
Right.
Tom, I know, do you want to have something from the township? Did they make more of a decision, or come on up?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Wheeler. I'm a neighbor right there. I am on the Township Board of Supervisors, but I'm not here representing them, and I'm here representing myself and my family. And I don't know, we ended up, anything comes along, we just go undecided. What do you do? You're in trouble if you approve it, you're in trouble if you don't, and we just have went undecided, I guess, over the last number of years. But, my issues was, I was busy seating, I missed the planning and zoning, and I got the last commissioners meeting mixed up. I thought it was a Thursday, and it turns out it was the Tuesday, and it was already passed. So here I am, and, if I'm allowed to say things, I guess I had some things to say about it. But anyway, you can see on the map, the proximity on the south end of this development and how close it is to our farmstead. And that's our concern. There's our farmstead right there. And north of our farmstead, there's a little pasture right in the corner there, and that's our calving pasture. And, my son is into cattle more than I am. He's increased our herd, 3 times to what I used to raise. And he had plans to increase it more, so there's more livestock there. And it's gonna be right beside us, and if they get this one developed and sold in, or I don't know if they're gonna sell them, I don't know if they're gonna rent them, I don't know what the particulars are as far as each parcel there, what they're gonna do with them, I have no idea what that plan is. But then they'll go to the next one, and I'm gonna have developments all the way across. And it looks like the house that's there now is at the north end, but they're buying the lots or whatever the deal is all the way down, so they could develop or build something at the south end. Now, on that line between, that's a mile-long corridor that we live in on, and there's a road they built, kind of not a county spec road at all the way that full mile there, and then there's at least one road, I think that blue line there going on the left, they built a kind of a road north and south on that one too. That's why I didn't understand where if the plots were gonna lay east and west and north and south, but I can see now on the plan that they are north and south. And, that road was built, and then it changed the flow of water, and I had to go to the water board. We had to get that straightened out, because the road was not built to spec at all. It didn't, no culverts or nothing built into it. So they had to come back and put some culverts so the water could flow where it always flowed. And I think that's okay now, but the road is not to any spec at all. And even the one going north is not to any kind of a county spec. And I realize it's their private property, I guess, but they can do that. And that's their comment, it's our land, we should be able to do what we want. And with their land. But it's gonna affect us huge. And my whole life I've read farm magazines, and it talks about, usually it's, other states to the east where people have lived on a farm. Well, then the people move out of the city, and the next thing, the farm is surrounded. And all of a sudden, the farm has to change their farming practices that they've used forever because of people moving in. And the people moving in, they want to live in the country, but they want the same rules they have in the city. And, people move out there, it's gonna bring dogs, are they gonna have livestock? It's nice to be, we're the only ones with livestock right there. Hickles have a few down there, sometimes mostly horses, where they don't fight through the fences and stuff. So we're kind of secluded that way. So, there's just a lot of reasons why, and they have other options. You recall that Charlene applied for the RV camp south of their farm on the east side of the highway. And I've said, since this, these arguments started, I've said all along, build it over there on either side of the highway, by your farm, not by mine, and I will not object. If you recall, I came and I did say a few words about their RV camp, but I did not object to it because it was across the road by their house, not, now they come back, now they want to do this by our house, our farmstead. They have other options. They have options north of their farmstead also. And north of the township road north there, they could work on it. It's going to affect us forever. My son's on the farm now, and the plan is for him to take over. So it's going to be this isn't just for one, like an oil well moves in, they do this, and then they're gone. It's there. It's going to be there. It's going to continue, and we're going to be the farmer, and we're going to want to spread manure, and we're in trouble. We're going to want to spray. The standard farming practices are going to be affected by this. What's our option? Back up and move? My great-granddad came there in 1902.
Tom, can I ask a township question?
Yes.
I'm assuming these roads are gonna have to be maintained. Is the township agreeable to doing that?
No, they've never really asked us about that. It got brought up when they had a different developer and development one time, and it kind of got brought up, but we're not looking to take on any more roads. And that's another thing I have with people that move to the country. And we tell people that can move into our township, well, don't expect us to have your roads cleaned of snow so you can be to work by 8 o'clock, because they won't be. We'll get there when we get there. And forever, the farmers that live out there, they take care of their own means to get to town.
Anybody got any other questions for Tom?
I don't have for Tom, but I do for Ed.
Okay. Nobody else? Tom, thanks. I appreciate your input.
There's one other thing I'd like to bring up is the mailboxes. Where are the mailboxes gonna be? And for all these houses coming along there. And it wasn't that many years ago when Hal Hickel, mentioned to me at a township meeting, he doesn't want my mailbox on his side of the road anymore. It's on the county right away, but nope, I want that gone. He went to the postmaster, wanted it gone. Well, now they're gonna put, if they put mailboxes usually across the road, because that's the way the post, mail person delivers, so they're gonna be across the road from that there. And that's on land that I rent from Jim Hepper, and he's the one that sent the letter saying he's against this also. So now they want the rules against me, but then now they want to put these on somebody else's. One other thing is the engine brakes. They got a sign south of their farm as you go north, no engine brakes. And then they got another one coming from the north, way over, it's about halfway between the two curves, coming from north, no engine brakes. That's just for their farmstead there. Are they gonna, if they get this here, are they gonna ask for more engine brake signs so we go way around the curve? So they don't want rules imposed on them, but they don't mind imposing them on other people. I really have a problem with that. My parents built a house in 1987 just north of town, half a mile north of the highway, just north of town, on top of the hill as you come into Ray. They never complained about it. They never asked for engine brake signs. My son lives there now. I said to him, does it bother you? I don't really notice it. So we've never asked for it, but they got to have it. So they want rules for other people, but not for them. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tom. Ed, you want to come up? I think Commissioner Montgomery has a question.
Ed, do you know why, or share with us the reason why they want to do this?
Currently, this government lot 2 is under the ownership of 4 siblings, Hal and 3 of his siblings, and I don't know what brought it on, but they've decided they wanted to parcel this one so they each have a lot within government lot 2.
Okay, thank you. I guess the reason I ask is that maybe you can help me, but I tend to believe, and Tom, you might be able to help because you live in the area, and I think you've already touched on it a little bit, but it seems to me that we have a tremendous amount of undeveloped subdivisions in Williams County already that I think would satisfy the needs of people that want to, if they choose to, live out in the country. I guess so. That's just my point of view.
And yeah, that certainly could be a valid point. I don't know, is there a thought from those siblings then to be able to transfer, part of the Hal or part of the Hickle property to one of their children? I guess I'm just not sure if that's what the ultimate intent, but right now it's under the ownership of Hal and his siblings, and they wanted to split it into 4 parcels so they each have a parcel of land, so.
Because the other question, I guess, is, and that's a planning and zoning question, it says in here that the future use is intended, I stress the word intended, to be single-family residence. So if this is approved, that doesn't mean in the future that that cannot be changed, correct?
Explain that a little more. I mean, if we
Well,
approve
I'm
it,
looking at
doesn't
the first paragraph on the project overview. They have applied for a zone change from agricultural to rural residential. And it says the future use is intended to be single-family residence. It doesn't say will be, it says intended, meaning that that could change in the future.
Which it could, but I think at this point, the intent is to make it single-family residential, but if they were to do any changes, they would still have to go through a process here with Williams County to get any changes approved, so, yeah.
I'm sorry. My point is, it's what it looks like to me, and maybe it's just me, that once you open that window of opportunity, it can be opened a lot further down the road.
Any other questions for planning, zoning, or Ed?
Well, I do agree with David on that, but I'm having, and I agree with Tom wholeheartedly. But it get back to the first point of it is, can we not allow them to divvy up family land? I mean, I don't,
I don't think there's any law, Barry, that states, and Karen, you correct me if I'm wrong, that says that they can't divvy up ag land. It doesn't have to be rezoned to residential to divvy it up. They can still divvy up ag land. Correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor.
That is correct. However, these lots, because they're under 40 acres, that's why we are proposing the zone change. And then also just to consider, I mean, you're more than welcome to have them move through with the re-subdivision, allowing them to remain ag. However, single-family residences are also permitted in the ag district, so they could do the same thing.
By rezoning rural residential, how, if each one of those lots, so 4 lots, they're, what, 12 to 13 acres, each owner could then further subdivide those 4 lots into 2-acre lots eventually?
Down to as small as 1 acre,
Yeah,
if it met all the other subdivision requirements.
which, I mean, is that their intention?
You would have to ask them. All I know at this point is they want to divide this government lot 2 into 4 parcels so each one of the siblings would have a parcel of land.
And once it's rezoned to this, they'd be able to knock it down to the 1-acre lots? Without more, would they have to go to planning and zoning again, Taylor, or would they?
Actually, I stand corrected. With rural residential, it would likely, you could carve them down to 5 acres. If they wanted to go smaller than 5 acres, then they would have to propose a zone change to urban residential.
Okay, so really, yeah, 2 lots is what they could come up with on each one, that's.
And they'd also have to
difference
meet,
between 12.
road frontage requirements, dimensions, access, other various factors.
Gotcha, thank you. Any other questions, guys, or?
Well, I just worry that this is gonna wind up kind of the back way into that subdivision. You know, split it into smaller chunks and then smaller after that. And we got oodles and oodles of stuff that's already out there for subdivision stuff, but
Well, what are the wishes?
Just how far is this from Ray? Is this south of Ray or north?
About a
North.
mile.
Gotcha. Okay, now I gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion to move this along to deny the request for the minor subdivision.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Who's second?
Hearing none, roll call vote, Beth.
Does that include the zone change?
That is what this request is for,
Okay.
is the zone change.
Just checking. Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
yes.
Corey.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have item LU-0049-21. Jason Ekblad, on behalf of Sellen Construction, is requesting a conditional use permit for an existing gravel pit in section 35 of Tyrone Township. This was also tabled at the last meeting. There were some concerns raised about a pipeline, so we do have some updates for that as well. Staff met with the applicant out at the site to identify where the pipeline is in relation to the proposed dig site. The site is 5 acres in the northwest corner of the subject property. And the operator will be done with this location after that area has been mined. Selland Construction is aware of the unmarked pipeline, and they contacted One Call to determine exactly where it is. The pipeline runs north of the dig site on a separate parcel and then crosses the subject property in the northeast corner, where the digging's not being proposed. Later that same day, Sam Miller also met with a resident of the area, Mrs. Kuster, just to discuss her concerns of the unmarked pipeline. We staff could not find record of the pipeline easement across the Dennert property. Mrs. Kuster would like to see the pipeline company record an easement that identifies the pipeline's location for future purposes. However, we as staff don't have concern with the pipeline in relation to this request because it's on the separate side of the parcel. There is a public comment letter provided for you in the staff report. And then Water Board once again discussed this project at their meeting on the 8th. It was determined that all downstream property owners were notified of this project through the public hearing process. So staff is removing that condition from the CUP since there's no need to re-notify the downstream owners a second time. And I do believe Mr. Ekblad and both Mrs. Kuster are in the audience if you have further questions.
Jason, do you have anything to add first, or would you rather have me go with Mrs. Kuster first?
Yeah, I guess to just point out.
If you're gonna point anything out, come on up, state your name and let us know. Gotta know who you are.
I'm Jason Ekblad. What's loud? So the proposed dig site, I don't know if I could direct your cursor a little bit to show everybody. Go down just a little bit, right above, right there in that area, and go just north to where that section, where it's broke into kind of farm field, and go north just a little bit further, right there. That little area is gonna be mined. It's roughly a 5 acre area. Now, if you zoom out, I don't know if we've got the pipeline loaded anywhere, but it's on the other side of the section, way over there, runs east, down a little, yeah. We may have another picture of it, but then it cuts in the very northeast corner of this very section. You can kind of see the delineation south of the farmstead, down south a little bit with the cursor. Go to the east. Right there is where it cuts across. And I believe that was the area of concern, and as to whether or not it's marked or not. One call was placed. It was so far out of the dig site, they chose to not even throw flags in the ground. So we're a long ways, or proposed dig site's a long ways from this existing pipeline. And that's about. Did they go? Okay. Well, good. So.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay.
Should be it. Dorothy, you got some?
Members of the commission, I'm Dorothy Kuster. I live in the area with my husband. We have 2 homes. My mom and my dad originally live in a piece of property just above where this pipeline is, and our home is behind. I've met with Jason, and we had a very nice conversation. When the letter came out and when I spoke at Planning and Zoning, there was no reference to where this pit was going to be. And living there, I knew what had been mined and what hadn't, and so I wondered, that's why I came to the meeting. Where is it going to be mined? Is it going to be right below Mom's house? Because that is the vicinity of the pipeline that I'm concerned about. In visiting with Jason, we had a nice conversation. I stated even at the Planning and Zoning meeting, I don't oppose the mining. That's not it at all. I just have been very concerned that this line has not been marked. And I have submitted a packet to you all, and there's a long history with this pipeline. It goes back to about 2015. I'm just going to read a few little statements that I prepared just because it's kind of an emotional thing, and if you have questions, you go ahead. It was surprising to me after I attended the planning and zoning meeting to get a call from a county official saying that there was no record of that pipeline, because they stood before that group and said, there's a pipeline down there. And so at that point, my wheels started to turn. It was an unfortunate situation that happened. It was the first pipeline we let through our property, and we have learned a lot since then. The pipeline itself was not recorded in the right place on my property. And it was only about 3 or 4 years later when we received a letter saying that the pipeline was in an avoidance area, which means in an area too close to residential homes. And at that point, we had to hire a lawyer. And you have evidence of some of that information in your submission that I gave you. But at that time, our lawyer discovered that the pipeline was not recorded at all in the right place. And so we had to begin the process of getting it revoked and getting a new recording, and you have evidence of that. This is what was so surprising to me. I would have thought that they would have recorded the pipeline in its entirety, and they didn't. They stopped at the corner posts at the end of my property. And so the reference that Jason's making about this little piece under there that really has nothing to do with mining, that came up unfortunately, and we were discovering, that we have something that's dangerous, I feel, in an unmarked line. And because of that, that's a concern. It's in an avoidance area that the state calls an avoidance area because it violates the 500-foot regulation. It's 100 and some feet from Mom's house.
So you're saying that they recorded the line
To
up to the avoidance area? Did they continue, did they skip and then record the line after it got past the avoidance area?
I don't know the answer to
Because it
that.
seems to me that'd be the only reason you wouldn't do that.
Yes, I agree with you. There's something very fishy here. There is. And what I did do, and I probably should have done it 10 years ago, is I went to my neighbor a few nights ago, and you know who that is. He was totally unaware that it had been not recorded. And he is concerned about that also. So basically, I just want to state to the board that I don't want to interfere with the mining process. It's way across. I understand that after meeting with Jason. I don't want to interfere with the approval of the CUP. That doesn't concern me at all. And it's a little hard, but I think I can probably leave it up to the landowner to do diligence and see if he can get this taken care of. It is an issue of concern for our family. And it's hard to understand. Bad things happened during those times, and this is just an example. I guess I don't feel I need any action from you. I feel that since I've talked to my neighbor, I'm hoping that he can get it resolved and I'll be satisfied. But because the process began, and I just thought I was dealing with an unmarked line, and then to be told by Mr. Kalile that they couldn't locate the line, then I knew what was going on. So those are my comments.
And you said it's how close to your mom's house?
You should have the map. It's under 200 feet. Runs right at the base of the hill. See the little blue line there? It just follows right around the base of the hill. And then it runs
It'd be real
diagonally across the highway.
It'd be real interesting to know if they recorded that line after they got farther away from the residents?
I don't know.
I'd like to know the answer to that.
Kinder Morgan.
It wasn't, yeah. When it initially was put in, it was not them, but then they assumed the pipeline.
That means they take on the liability.
Yes, it does. Yes,
I
it
guess
does.
I just have two quick comments. I appreciate you bringing this to us.
I didn't know.
I don't really think it has a lot to do with the Selland
I agree
gravel
with you.
pit,
I
but
totally agree with you.
what can we do from the county side to put pressure on? Because obviously it needs to be addressed. Is there anything we can do to
Well,
push this along?
this line, I would assume was approved by the Public Service Commission. And it's the Public Service Commissions, I'm gonna get on my high horse here with federal, state, and government. The Public Service Commission is responsible for that pipeline. They should have had inspectors out here inspecting that pipeline. To me, this is another perfect example
It is.
of somebody sitting in an office in Bismarck approving something that does not know what's going on out here. And I would suggest that this board has our attorney send a letter to the Public Service Commission with you guys' knowledge so that they can get this thing fixed.
Was I that obvious? Because you read my mind. That's kind of where I was going, what we can do, and I think that's a great idea.
I saved you the grief of saying it for you.
You say
Thank
it so much better than I do.
I can also say it impacts a neighbor across the road. So there were 3 homes that were, and that's Wade Smith. It also impacted 2 families farther east. I'm not going to say their names.
Well, it's right, and, like that, things happen. Well, the pipelines don't have, I mean, you have to do that. It just don't happen. So, I don't have a lot of forgiveness for the pipeline.
No, this was my husband's view. Dorothy, why are you coming here? Why don't you just call the Public Service Commission? Well, you saw a copy of the letter I got from them. They wanted me to sign that it was okay that they put it there. And that's what ended up, a legal issue began, They cost us money,
So
So-
they didn't do the job that they're supposed to do, but you have to go out and hire attorneys and pay fees to get it done right.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. I would appreciate that action. And I do feel, like I said, after talking with my neighbor, I do think we can resolve this and hopefully he can satisfy the fact that I can have some proof that it was recorded, because it does matter to us.
But I think, Dorothy, it's the Public Service Commission's responsibility to make this company get this pipeline recorded where it's at correctly.
Correctly.
And if I was you, I'd make them move it to the 500 feet.
Well, I was gonna say, I wouldn't so
tried.
much report
We
it as
tried.
I'd have them relocated, because that's way too close to
You maybe
occupied
see
buildings.
some notes referenced. It was a ugly ordeal. That's all I'll say.
Does anybody know how big the pipeline is? I mean, is it 2-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 16-inch?
It's in my papers.
It's
I'm
not
sure.
recorded, David. We don't know.
It's in my papers, I'm sure, but I don't have them with me.
Karen, you got something? I see you're
My
right there.
concern was this all prompted because they were gonna increase the load limits. And that was the reason that we got this letter, is because they were wanting to put more down the line.
Go ahead,
I'll
Karen.
just say one more thing if I can, Mr. Chairman, and then be quiet. Barry, you asked about the pipeline. That should be a matter of record if it is recorded. So it would just be a matter of somebody doing the research to see if the next quarter over has got it recorded.
Well, it just seems awful convenient that you record it right up till you made a mistake, and then if they start it again after it,
My
that's a direct
guess-
cover-up.
Because of its proximity to Wade, my guess, if they were covering something up, they wouldn't have recorded that also.
Sooner or
Down
later,
the
they
road.
would start, and I'd be
Yes.
kinda curious to see where it picks up on the east side.
Right. So, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it if you're willing to send a letter.
Yeah, there's no problem in sending the letter, but I would also recommend that we also include Kinder Morgan on that too, so they're gonna, gives them a little bit of push on there too. And also, I would probably need copies of what Mrs. Kuster has really given to the board, so I can look at it really. So I can go ahead and draft a letter and send it off then.
So I guess my thought would be we're gonna need 2 motions here. One, we're gonna need to approve the CUP for selling construction, and then we're gonna need to probably make another one to direct Karen with probably the help of planning and zoning to send a letter to the Public Service Commission and see if we can get this thing straightened out. Am I right on track, or? Okay, let's address the CUP to start with then.
I make a motion to approve the CUP for the Sullen Construction.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, any discussion? We've had plenty, perfect. Roll call vote.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Motion carried. Now for the second motion.
Mr. McChairman, I'll make a motion that we direct our Special States Attorney Karen Prout to send a letter to the Public Service Commission addressing this pipeline with all the information that she needs.
And you want that signed by the chairman?
That'd be correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Actually, I want to, no, that's fine.
No discussion? Roll call?
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Just, I'm wondering if it might be a better idea for the, also maybe have the vice chair sign, because Steve wasn't really part of this discussion here, so I'm just wondering.
Well, I was gonna mention, Karen, that's a good point. I was gonna mention that maybe we should have all 5 commissioners on there with the signature, with something in there states that this was approved unanimously by the board, and then have the chairman sign that. Do we need to redo the motion to do that?
Okay, so you want all of the commissioners to sign this letter?
I would just assume that all of our names be on there and the chairman signs it for us with a note that this was brought up at a meeting and approved unanimously, this letter.
Well, I think what Karen's saying is Steve wasn't here. So she's asking if it would be easier to have the vice chair sign, and I don't have a problem signing it. But, yeah,
Yep, I can do that. Yeah.
I made those changes in the motion.
Because I'll say this publicly too, Dorothy, it might help that 2 of the 5 commissioners on the Public Service Commission have ties to Williams County. So I hope that gets their attention.
perfect. Okay, now we move on.
Okay, and then item number 3 is SP-0051-21, which is re-subdivision of sublot 1 and the northwest quarter in section 2 of Judson Township. This request is from staff. The proposed re-subdivision will move a boundary line between 2 existing properties in order to eliminate a building encroachment. The plat has been reviewed. It meets all technical criteria to be recorded, and it's moved on to the final review stage on Mylar. So staff's just requesting final approval and authorization for chairman or vice chairman to sign the Mylar prior to recordation.
I'll make that a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Looks like Darcy, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. On the May 4th meeting, we brought forward, I'd originally introduced a abatement hearing for Donald Anderson for the southwest section of Section 25 of Township 15898, and I had asked that you tabled it while we corrected some issues with the paperwork. However, since that time, we have not been able to get in contact with Mr. Anderson. We have sent regular mail, certified mail, and phone calls and cannot get a hold of him to correct the paperwork. He submitted his 2020 income with his 2020 application for abatement, but that would have, because of the income years, his 2020 income would apply for 2021 application, not for the 2020. So I am asking that we deny his abatement for 2020 without the correct year of income.
Could we give him a little more time? I mean, is that possible, or is this like a?
We've been
deadline
trying to
thing?
contact him since April 30th, when we found out about this. So.
All right, well, I wasn't too sure how long it went, because
Yep.
his dad had just passed away.
Yeah,
last
no,
week, so I-
no, we had, when we discovered this, it was before the May 4th meeting, so we've been contacting him since like April 30th, I think I wrote the letter, so.
I would make a motion to follow staff's recommendation.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So his income documents are a year too early?
Yes, yeah.
So is this something that he can get into compliance with later then also?
I would think if he could provide us the correct paperwork, I would bring it before you again. But I don't, because of timelines on statute for abatements, I'd like to wrap this up and.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thanks. Looks like facilities.
Good morning, Commissioners. Richard Martin, Facilities Director, currently. I'd like to introduce Keith Clevin, my replacement, as of 30 June, when I'll be departing the area.
Welcome aboard, Keith.
Thanks, excited to be here.
You got big shoes to fill.
That's what I hear.
So welcome.
Thanks, have a good day.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm going to lay a little history out. That's why Richard ceded the podium to me. So you guys may all know, but I'll say it for the record, that one of our long-term goals has been to provide a more efficient, for all of us on some level, space for the facilities department to operate out of. And in part of our emergency services sort of storage construction project, we had a plan to use a nearby lot to construct what I would call a garage and a shop for the facilities department. And in 2020, when revenue was diminishing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this board made a decision to defer 2 projects out of that larger project. So on 4/21, we have minutes for 2020. This board said the shop that we were going to construct to the tune of just over $1 million, we are not going to proceed with because of our diminished revenue. We'll wait and see what happens as revenue pick up. Of course, we had no idea we were in for a year of a pandemic, but that's where we were at the moment. So early last week, maybe late the week before, Richard, Christy, and I had a conversation because there was a structure available for sale within about a block of us here that meets the needs of the facilities department. We did talk to the facilities portfolio commissioner, who of course is not here today, and discuss the possibility of at least looking at the building, seeing if it would be suitable, understanding what it was listed at as a sale price, and rolling along.
So I sent you some statistics about the building. I won't read all of those off, but you understand that it's actually 2 lots that we would propose to purchase. There's a building on one of them. This provides a lot of space and accomplishes many of the goals that we have to meet the needs of the facilities department. It includes things like vacating some other garage space that's needed by other departments, clearing some things out of parking lots that now endure the weather, and giving them a place to do the kind of work that they now have to improvise in various storage rooms, basements, out in parking lots. So to proceed with this, we have a willing seller who is I would say, sort of a friend to the county, in that when he was starting to get other interest in the building and knew that the county had an interest in that it would meet our needs, came to us and said, I'll hold it until you all have a commission meeting, but I need something from you in writing to know that you're serious. And so we did, Richard, Keith, Christy, and I work our way through that process. We do have Karen draft a document. Of course, we're in touch with Steve through all of this. And so I think you have a copy of that document in your packet. Our best way to approach this, because there's quite a difference between what we have it listed. We often go to our own records and see what our assessor's office would value the property at, which we know is sometimes a year behind, and we know that these kind of buildings right now are in high demand. And what the seller is asking, which the seller gets to choose the price. So you'll see that in that document, what we said is that we would incur the cost of a commercial appraisal so that we could ensure we were being good fiduciaries of taxpayer dollars, but that we are also giving the seller a fair price for the property that he owns. Any questions? So the question before this group then is, although we signed a document that said we have an intention to purchase, it also says in that document, pending the approval of the Board of Commissioners today. So if we were on the wrong track, you have the right now to say, nope, it won't work, and we're under no obligation. But I think Richard, Keith, and I are real hopeful that this is something you can get behind in the way that we have, because I think we're real excited that it solves some problems for us. So you'll see that I have a motion. I think you have to have a motion to proceed with the sale, which I didn't write, or with the purchase, which I didn't write out for you. But then in terms of the mechanics, we think that what we need, and I of course talked this through with Karen, we had a nice conversation about it yesterday, is the motion, and I gave the wording to Beth and I emailed it out to all of you last night, is authorization for the chairman, or in his absence, the vice chair, to negotiate the final price once that commercial appraisal has been completed. And then to allow Attorney Prout to proceed with the initial phases of the purchase process, which would be getting some paperwork together and working through the purchase with the seller. Part of what's going to happen is that, if you remember, there's a funny 5-week, the way the calendars fall this year, there's a 5-week roll through a long month here. So we're gonna have a 3-week gap between 2 meetings, the last meeting in June and what ends up to be sort of the second meeting in July. So we didn't want this hung up and delayed because of that gap. So we want to give Karen permission to proceed, and we have some past practices as it relates to making purchases, which would include that 5% down, so it gives a little bit of escrow money, and 50% of the closing costs is how we've typically made purchases. Karen, it was important to Karen to have that direction so that she could proceed with the documents. And then, of course, that final document we would expect to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for a final approval. One more thing, I guess I'll just cover it all and then I'll be quiet.
You will not.
In talking about how to fund this, we think it's important to note that we would have proceeded differently had our revenue streams not dried up due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We do have federal funding coming to us soon. You hear lots in the news about it. It's ARPA is the acronym, and those funds are somewhat restricted. And the guidance and the rules from the feds are still coming out, but our hope would be that we would use that ARPA money to complete this project, because it was clearly deferred due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the sort of the aftermath of that. However, if we find out that that money is too restricted and this wouldn't meet the guidelines, then we would intend, and this of course comes to us from Christie, to use the CARES money, which is also COVID-19 funds, less restricted, but still, again, coming downstream to us to help offset the damage to our fiscal situation due to the pandemic. But again, our hope would be if this fits the criteria of the more restrictive money, of course, let's use the more restricted money.
I guess I've only just got a couple quick comments on it. I think it was great that we got the opportunity to find this building because it's funny, but we talked about it. Maybe we could find a building for under $1 million after we had to put the other one on hold. So this is gonna be a pretty substantial savings from when we were gonna build it, so.
I certainly agree. Just one comment, if I may. Richard, you've been lobbying for this building for 3 years, and now you're leaving. I'll certainly make that a motion if you stay and help out Keith for another year.
I really don't think Nicole would enjoy that.
Well, and I see Keith shaking his head no behind you too, so.
You know,
So having said that, Mr. Chairman, I will make that a motion to, do you want me to read it? So I got it right?
I mean, I just read it, so
No, you left parts out.
sure. I guess I paraphrased.
I'm just kidding. I'll make that a motion, Mr. Chairman, that Helen read. Beth, you have a copy of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'll also include in that motion that we utilize the whichever COVID-related funding we can to purchase that property.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Beth, roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
And now we're going to wait for Helen to stop talking to Karen because we're gonna do Frost Law.
All right, yeah, before you get into the discussion about this, I just want to give you a heads up about a couple of conflicts. Corey came to me yesterday, we had discussions. Based on those discussions, I'm going to be recommending to this board that Corey abstain from voting on the Frost Law application for Trenton Township and for East Fork Township. And the reason for that is that Corey owns a company called Dinger Dirt LLC, got that name right? And no, Dinger, rhymes with ringer, but starts with a D. Dirt, LLC, yep. Yeah, and so with regard to Trenton Township, Corey has provided, the applications for Trenton Township and for East Fork Township are for dust control. So in the past, Corey's company has provided dust control for Trenton Township. They apparently recently reached out to Corey about providing numbers or a quote for dust control for that. And so it's a possibility that, and I'm not aware that Trenton Township has gotten quotes from anybody else. And Corey has indicated to me that there's probably a very strong possibility that he'll get the dust control services for Trenton Township. And so even though it's not 100%, I think it's best to err on the side of caution. So I'm going to recommend that Corey abstain from voting on the Trenton Township Frost Law application. Even though I'm recommending that he abstain, this board does have the right to vote to allow him to participate in the discussion and to vote on it really without Corey voting on that thing. So if you don't agree with him abstaining, then you can vote otherwise really. With regard to the East Fork Township, Corey has also provided, Corey's company has also provided dust control services for East Fork in the past, and he most recently provided dust control work for them too, but his company has not been paid for that. And so East Fork Township's Frost Law grant application is also for dust control. And so because of Corey's past interaction and his recent service for them for dust control, I'm recommending that he abstain from voting or discussing the East Fork Township grant application also. Again, you know, if you don't agree with those, you guys have the right to say that he can discuss and vote on those things. There's also concern about, Corey also was concerned about Beaufort Township. Even though he's provided some dust control for Beaufort and Township in the past, he hasn't done anything recently. They haven't reached out to him or anything like that. So with regard to Beaufort Township, even though the applications were dust control and he did provide stuff for them in the past, not recently, I told him that I did not believe that was a conflict. And so my recommendation that he can discuss and part of the vote of the Beaufort Township. The other thing, Corey was also concerned that possibly because of this, that other townships also might reach out to them. They haven't yet, but they haven't. And so I guess I told him that because they might, that's not really enough of a direct interest to be a conflict. And so to me, that's not a conflict really. So the two conflicts really that I'm recommending is Trenton Township and East Fork Township. So.
And you guys do know this is a lot shorter conversation when it was just between Karen and I.
Barry and Bo, do you got any conflicts here?
I do not have a issue, I guess. I spoke with earlier and but just to err on the side of caution, yeah.
Wouldn't it be easier to just eliminate these request grants from them? 3 townships and let them deal with you?
No. So I just wanted to bring this ahead of time because I wasn't really quite sure if you were going to make a single motion to follow all the recommendations. I want to just point those 2 out really, so.
I certainly appreciate that because I believe, and Corey, I believe, I appreciate that also in being transparent to the public.
Well, and I also bring this up though too, because there have been different meetings I've been to, governing bodies and things like that, and sometimes the person that thinks they have a conflict will abstain automatically without disclosing the conflict, and you're really supposed to disclose the conflict, and you don't get to, you're the person that maybe has a conflict doesn't really get to decide whether or not they have a conflict. It's the rest of the board members or the attorney. And also, and if you don't have a conflict, you actually have to vote. So I just wanted to make that clear.
But Karen, those other public entities don't have an attorney named Karen Prout.
Who apparently makes longer things than really, but that's not really true though. I only gave the facts that Corey gave to me.
You're still going.
I think
Okay, I'll be quiet. So do we need to make a motion first to allow Corey to abstain or?
No,
Okay.
no.
I have a question. If they vote to approve as recommended by the committee, then Corey wouldn't have to abstain.
I think
You know, if
just,
they approve the whole list.
no, he can't, no. If they do that, Corey cannot vote on it because Trenton Township and East Fork Township is in there. So
Okay.
I instead of the board making a motion saying he can abstain, I just need Corey to say on the record, based on legal counsel advice, I abstain from East Fork Township and Trenton Township. That's all you need to do. Yep,
Want me to say that?
yep, I do.
I'm going to abstain from discussion on East Fork Township and Trenton Township. From the advice of legal counsel.
Based on the conflict.
I feel like Oliver North up here, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're good to go?
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the actual business at hand then. Apparently, we're gonna have to do it in 2 motions if we're gonna approve the list, so is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the frost permit grants to all the townships except Trenton and East Fork.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Roll call.
And these grants have to be used within 1 year, correct?
There's stuff in the grant application already that's taken care of.
Okay, well, that's right.
It's
I
on the
left
grant
it-
application.
I left it in there.
And I would, county highway should probably, when they send out the notifications, to strongly recommend that before they go spray this stuff on the road in front of somebody's house, to make sure they actually want it. Cause some people would rather the dust just blows away. This stuff gets slimy when it's wet and it's highly corrosive, and some people would rather.
So is County Highway doing the work?
No, the township, this is their.
So why does county highway have to contact the people if this
Well,
is
no,
a township?
recommend that the township board.
Oh, okay.
Talk to the residents
Sorry.
before they spray it in front of their home.
Misunderstood you. I thought you meant the county had to do it. Okay.
Beth, can we get a roll call?
Who was the second? David and Barry. Got it. We have David.
It was Barry and Bo, actually.
Got it. David,
Yes?
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Well, and then I would make a motion to approve the Frost Law grant, Frost permit grants to East Fork and Trenton Township also.
Is there a second?
Second, from Bo.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Corey,
Abstain.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion carried. Looks like we have the quitclaim deed for North Dakota right-of-way. Who's bringing that?
Wayne Crow. Highway 50 was originally a county highway. And from what I understand, it was exchanged with the state on a trade. And the state is in the process of designing new improvements for Highway 50. And in the process of doing that, they found several parcels of land that were not deeded with that conveyance. And so this is just a matter of two small parcels going from Williams County to the state for those small parcels for Highway 50.
These were those little slivers that you'd kind of shown us, right? Just, I mean, it totally makes sense. Yeah. So any questions for Wayne? Can we get a motion?
I would make a motion to have, chairman sign the deed, or, vice chair sign the deed.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Bo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Karen, you're on here. Do you have anything else? All right, Helen, it's you.
Maybe Ed and someone in the audience are here from Muddy Valley,
Oh, we already did that when everybody was late.
including me.
Yep.
Um,
Ed came in and there's nothing going on with it right now. We're waiting on some other information in order to finish the paperwork. Just waiting on info from him. Yeah, I believe it was a signature, Ed, for the Muddy Valley. Appraisal.
I apologize, I was late. It was a little hectic this morning. We just got back from a funeral out of state. I did check with Wells Fargo. That's my bank that's holding everything up supposedly. Wells Fargo, I had sent it to Karen and I had sent it to Ed back in 2019, what Wells Fargo needed. I called Service Link yesterday for Wells Fargo. They have nothing sent in for an appraisal yet. I don't know if Ed had just contacted the appraiser himself, but it did not go through Wells Fargo Service Link.
Okay.
So that is what's holding everything up. It is not my bank. It is not us. It is whatever Ed's got going on. He's been telling me since February that supposedly this appraiser is coming out next week. It's holding us up on quite a bit.
Okay. Okay. I'm assuming Ed's gonna address it and get it done as soon as we can.
Beth, do you have a copy? Yep. Okay, perfect, thank you.
And then I think I set the agenda back out again with this on it.
Oh, okay. You all have a copy? I have a couple, if anybody wants one. I feel like you're looking at screens. Well done. Oh, Bo.
I gave these to you already, didn't I?
Okay, yep. I'll just always carbon you, when I send it to Beth, I'll carbon you on that email. That way you could pull it up that way too if you wanted. And I can't promise I'm always gonna do it ahead of time. I mean, I was talking to the sheriff right before I sent this yesterday, so sometimes we're at the last minute. So this is actually a little bit of housekeeping, but I think we've all agreed that it's important that that the commission stay involved in how we're filling positions and make sure that in times when there's a little financial strife, you all have control over how we're filling positions. So the situation is this: we have a corrections officer who's leaving employment, and we have a person working in the correctional center as an administrative assistant who has shown interest in being a corrections officer. So the two positions that you have here, the proposal from the sheriff and the lieutenant at the jail, is that our administrative assistant will transition into the corrections officer job that you see listed, and then we'll have an administrative assistant opening. We did list that internally for internal candidates to apply, had no interest, and they had a great number of people and a great round of interviews for the administrative assistant position that's currently open in the sheriff's office. And so they would propose that out of that round of interviews and that group of people, we actually fill both jobs. And so I think it's a great, efficient way. So that would be our proposal. These two actually end up getting filled if you approve it today.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve a request for the corrections officers and the administrative assistant in the sheriff's office.
I will second.
Any further discussion? Beth, roll call.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
That's all I have.
Perfect. Did we miss any department heads that needed to get in front of us? I don't think so. What for? Anybody, did we miss anybody then? Are we good? Okay, we're gonna close the meeting then. Thank you, everybody. 9:19.